welcome back to my channel, a space where we learn new habits so that we can fulfill all our potential and actually end up dying empty. So what am I talking about today? The title would have already said it. We're talking about money. So yeah, this is a topic honestly that's close to my heart because I believe money is an enabler, but until you fully understand its power, it sometimes actually hinders your progress, or you don't know how to fully utilize it. I do not have all the answers. I'm also figuring this out. But obviously, as we're figuring out, we are sharing all the lessons or what we are also learning and trying to implement in our lives. So today we're talking first step to actually creating wealth, to wealth building. And the first step is actually knowing where you at financially. When you're trying to decide, when you, for example, are looking for a new restaurant and you don't know where it is, where do you go? GPS. And for the maps or Google Maps to be able to tell you where you are going, it first needs to know your starting point. And that's why this is important, because in life, you're not going to be able to make a lot of progress unless you are very clear and honest about where you are. So a couple of years ago, I listened to a podcast called Afford Anything. It's American, and the podcast is by Paula Pant. Paula Pant had a guest called Joshua Sheets. So Joshua Sheets is an ex-financial advisor, now turned podcaster. Hey, the English. So his podcast is Radical Personal Finance. So Joshua Sheets created 7 stages to personal finance. So I've had some versions of how to achieve personal finance or personal stability explained in stages or in steps. But for me, these stages are the ones that have resonated with me the most. So I'll also put a link of that episode in particular in my description. The first stage that he spoke about is actually stage 0. So that's financial dependence. So infancy stage, basically, where you are still a kid, most likely you are still a kid, and school, clothes, food, you are still dependent on your parents or your guardian at that time. So obviously you can't do anything with that stage, even though now the kids are making money, even on TikTok and whatever, making their own money. But the first stage, which is the important stage, is financial solvency. So what does he mean by financial solvency? So financial solvency means you are able to pay the minimum required amount for your debts. So you don't have any extra, you don't do anything extra, but you are able to at least pay the minimum. I realize that there are some people that are below that, where they have debts but they're not able to pay all of them, and that obviously is more, it's going to be more prevalent now with interest rates now starting to go up and almost everything going up, really. So yeah, so, and that's why it's important for me to actually also celebrate milestones, where if you're coming from, you're not even able to pay debts, to now being like, I'm financially solvent, that is a celebration, because at least you have moved the dial in terms of making progress with your money. The second stage is financial stability. So financial stability, it's obviously, what it means is it's a step ladder. You have the first step and then you go to the second step. So financial stability is where, yes, you're paying minimum, but you, at least in this case, have a buffer. So what do I mean by a buffer? It's an emergency fund, basically, or some savings. He was not prescriptive, and also on my side, I don't believe we should be prescriptive English, and say people must have 6 months or 3 months, whatever minimum amount that makes sense to you, because remember, our lifestyle are different. It would not make sense for you to want to save 6 months worth of expenses when you should actually be trying to hustle and create your income by maybe investing in studying or investing in a side hustle. So that's why this stage, it's just about making sure you keep afloat, but you have a buffer in case of emergency. Because remember, what this in this stage, what it means is, when you have an emergency, at least you don't get into more debt. you are able to use that money to pay for that emergency and then replenish it over time. That's actually a differentiator between poverty and then just at least trying to survive. So that's important. The third stage is debt freedom. So living debt free. What do I mean by that? That seems such like a far-fetched idea for majority of the people, but it depends on how you define it. For example, some people define it as completely no debt, and that would be ideal in a perfect world, or in a world where houses are not so expensive. However, some people define it as not having any other debt except the house. And this is because most of the time houses are expensive, and you are allowed to pay it over a period of 20 years. And if the interest rate is not that high, then you know that you can get away with paying it over time and starting to focus on other things in terms of building your growth. That's what that's why you therefore in this case need to decide, what do you define as debt freedom. As I said, ideal would be absolutely nothing, but then you're still winning if you don't have any other debt except the one thing, which is a house or a bond or a home loan. Whatever language you prefer to use for that. So that's what it means. So in this case, it means your debt or your cash flow is in a better position, because the only real debt you're focusing on is a bond, or else all the other things you are paying for cash. The fourth stage. So here you are starting to make real progress, and you probably should be like so chuffed with yourself. So this stage is financial security. So financial security is where you have enough investment income to cover your basic income, your basic costs. So what do we mean by this? What he meant was, remember, obviously, as you are trying to pay off debt, as you're trying to do multiple things, and people approach it differently. Some people prefer to say, let me remove all the debts before I even start investing. For me personally, believing in doing the two parallel, where I'm trying to reduce debt, but I'm also investing, so that I can start building up my investment income. So this investment income can help you cover your basics, so like groceries, utilities, your water and electricity, transport. So you don't do fancy things with it, but you're able to cover your basic costs. So in this case, obviously it doesn't mean you go and be like, I retire or I quit, but you at least have the option to say, I'm gonna maybe leave my job for 6 months or a year and focus on trying to build something else because I feel drawn to this thing. Or if there's illness, maybe then you know you're not pressurized to be like, hey, you still need to be working because there's no money coming in. So for me, if I get to this stage, I'll be so happy. But I have small milestones that I'm focusing on here, because I don't believe you just get there. You will have to reach small milestone, because remember, especially investing is the long-term game for the most part. And this investment income, you can get it from different things. It can be shares, or it can be dividends that you get as and when they're paid, and depending on obviously your portfolio. It can be rental income. It can be you having a side hustle that's now covering your basic costs. So it can be that, but it's definitely a sign of progress. For me, I'll probably be celebrating so much when I get to the stage. Stage 5 is financial independence. So in this stage, it's obviously better than the fourth one, where in the fourth stage you are able to just cover the basics, but you still need more income to have a soft life, as the social media people call it, where you don't just cover your basics but even lifestyles, as in you're able to at least go on holiday, you're able to go out for dinner every once in a while, you're able to just splurge out on a couple of things. So this is the stage where all of that is covered. You are not super wealthy, you are probably not even rich, but you can afford to actually live off your investment income, not just doing the basics and covering some of the lifestyle discretionary spend stuff. Stage 6 is financial freedom. So how is this different to the fifth stage? So it's different in that here you're not able to only do basics and some lifestyle stuff. You can also do big purchases where if you want to buy a new car, you are able to do that in the financial freedom stage. But last but not least stage is the financial abundance stage. I must say, I think before he spoke about it, or I heard about it in the podcast, I didn't think about this. But this is the stage where it is important to think about it before you even arrive. And this is the stage where you're just deciding what to do with your money. When you have so much money that you know you're not going to spend all of it. In terms of what causes do you want to help? Is it children? Is it like children as an education or literacy or food and hunger? You know, like what your Bill Gates and your yeah, all these super rich or super wealthy people, what they focus on, because this will help in that, you know how some people are super rich and everyone can spend money the way they want to, but you see them do things that in our eyes look so wasteful, where you're like, okay, I know you love cars, but 10 cars, what are you really gonna do with 10 cars? For me, I think it's been important in this to have thought about this, to say, okay, if you want your 10 cars, you can get your 10 cars, obviously. But what else do I want to do with my money to just leave the world a better place than I actually found it? So at this stage, it was like, I'm definitely aiming for wealthy, and super wealthy so that I can do more of this. This doesn't stop you from giving into the causes that you like giving into before you get here. But imagine in this phase of your life, what or how much more you can do. So I can't wait, and I'll tell you guys when I arrive. So in conclusion, for me, what I got from this podcast was really know and own where you are at, while also making progress and knowing what the next steps are. Because what this will do is, firstly, it's going to encourage you to be like, oh, okay, I might not be where I want to be. However, I'm definitely making progress to actually go into the next step. So this is actually quite important for me. So we are currently in the financial stability phase, because we paying our debts. Yes, some of them we're paying a bit more, and we do have a buffer, but it would be so nice to at least get to the debt freedom. And for me, debt freedom excludes a home loan. So yeah, I can't wait for that, and I shall be celebrating those milestones. So please tell me where you're at, and have you found this helpful? Thank you so much for watching until this far. If you like this, please like it, and then subscribe if you like this type of content. Until next time, bye.